I'm Andrew. This is Jordan. We were just talking before I hit record about the fact that we're adults and we're in charge of our lives. And that means that if we want to eat cookies for dinner and not have real food, we can do that. And also, it means that if we want to not talk about what we're going to talk about on the podcast before we hit record, we can do that too. And so you can watch these two men figure it out live what they're going to talk about. And probably it'll be good, right?
Yeah, that cookie anecdote feels personal. Is that something that you're that you've done tonight?
Too often. Yeah. I would say that I do it too often. Listen, it's never a good choice. A lot like being a Cleveland sports fan, like there's more times that it doesn't serve you well than where you're like, oh, you know what felt really good was when I ate nothing but sugar and then went to sleep.
But in the moment, nothing better. Nothing better.
Right. And that's how it differs from Cleveland sports.
That is how it differs. There is a piece of joy in that, whereas with Cleveland sports, there's the whole process is bad.
Yeah. So, cookies never let me down like that. Okay.
Never have.
All right. So speaking of things that I just have been thinking about that I want to talk about on the podcast.
Yeah, let's hear it.
It's that time of year where we're all kind of figuring out what our sports. Well, I'll speak for myself. I have to really go through a period of what do I do now that football's no longer around, and the Olympics stopped, and so it's like, okay, I'm not 100% sure what my sports diet looks like now. I know what my real diet looks like now. It's cookies, but my sports diet is a little bit more uncertain. Jordan's is coffee, obviously. So I was starting to get a little bit of the baseball mood. We talked about the World Baseball Classic a few weeks ago. That's starting next week. I enjoy that a lot. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to watching that. Obviously, Guardian Spring Training has started. There was a great Tom Hamilton clip. Did you see this clip of the guy who was throwing submarine and overhand in the same at bat?
I did see that clip.
Tom Hamilton just being so confused about Now, what is he going to do next? Probably one of the two, Tom. I mean,
that's the best part about spring training is because you have these guys that are probably never actually going to play for the big league team.
Yeah.
But they get an invite and they're out there and you find guys like this who is just he can throw both ways and batters are like, I'm sorry, what's happening?
And that he was like, I'm pretty sure this game's on TV. I'm doing this. This has not been televised.
I am doing
it. Playing at Lynchburg, not a lot of those games make it to TV. So
no.
So he took that opportunity, and it was a classic Tom Hamilton moment. Really great to have those back.
I'd love to hear that. Love to hear the vocal stylings of Tom Hamilton. And there's truly nothing better.
He's the absolute best. So we're excited about baseball over the horizon. So to kind of get in the baseball mood, Jordan, I watched a documentary called The League, which is about Negro League baseball in the 20s, 30s, 40s, back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And I'm watching this documentary. It's a very good documentary. I know this isn't technically the recommendation segment, but if you're interested in that period of our history at all, please check it out. It's a great documentary. I'm not sure. I just had a copy of it. I'm not sure where where it is streaming wise, but it's just called The League. Not to be confused with the FX TV show from 20 years ago about
fantasy football. Very different.
Yeah, very different. Don't get it twisted. I am not recommending that show in the same way. I mean, I guess it could be. Maybe it holds up. I have my doubts though.
I'd be nervous to go and rewatch it.
It feels like there was probably a lot more casual homophobia than what we would want now in a TV show.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching this documentary. And it's obviously a lot of people that lived 100 years ago, and the way that we use language has changed. And obviously the fact that it's called the Negro Leagues is a great example of that, right? But other things are different too. And so one of the owners of one of the Pittsburgh clubs that were very influential in the early Negro League game was owned by a man named Cumberland Posey. Okay.
That's a name that only could exist in that period of time.
Right. Yeah. It's an all-timer of a name in and of itself. And so part of one of the clips is they had this interview with a journalist from Pittsburgh that covered this team. So this interview looked like it probably aired in the 70s, right? So this is with an old man in the 1970s talking about things that happened 50 years previously. Jordan, Cumberland Posey had a nickname.
Mm-hmm.
And I will give you one guess what his nickname was.
I'm not sure I want to guess.
Yeah, you don't want to say it on a podcast?
I'm not sure I want to say that. I'm not sure what the YouTube standards are here.
I swear to God, that's the nickname that he used
just
freely. Just that.
Okay. Well, it was a different time. So
a very different time.
Yeah.
Because you could just say things like,
like what, Andrew?
Me and Cum, we go way back.
Oh boy.
That's what he said. That's what he said.
Great. I love that. I
and
love
so,
that.
There's an innocence to it that is endearing, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of just couldn't believe, like, it being in the world that we live in now, which is like so internet centric, and like, you know, I mean, obviously our media in like porn, there's more crossover than ever, right? So like, it's just like it's infected our culture in a way that it hadn't 100 years ago. But man, for that to be an adult man's nickname is shocking.
Can you imagine that interview air like
That's what I'm saying, right?
All over Twitter.
Yeah.
Well, that is I can't say this is how I expected the podcast to start, and so I thank you for leading us down that path to where a man is saying things like "me and Cum go way back." So
I wanted to share with everybody that happened, and it's literally just, you know, kind of one of those things that if you don't watch, you know, obscure documentaries, you're not going to have that.
You're not going to see that kind of content. No.
So and it was like, if it had happened once, I would have been like, I think that's what he said, but I'm not going to but he kept coming back to it, so to speak. And so that's, you know, anyway.
Yeah. I see what you did. All right. I like that. All right.
Yeah. So that's baseball. We covered baseball. I mostly, you know, in terms of like what has actually happened in the sports world, Jordan, I want to talk about the Cavs, because we were like post All-Star break last week, kind of teeing up some big games for them. They played 3 times since we last spoke. Big game on Sunday against the Thunder that they lost pretty convincingly, I would argue.
Yeah.
They hung around, but they were never really in it. And the, you know, Thunder didn't have their best players. And so, you know, what happened there? Great win against the Knicks, which, again, another one where it was like not as close as it seemed. I think they won very convincingly. And then a disappointing loss against Milwaukee last night. And so I guess just like, I mean, I have consistently deferred to you, Jordan, as the ball knower here on the pod.
No, thank you.
But like, grade for me this week, like as a Cavs fan, you're looking back on a week, 3 games. I think all of them kind of important games in different ways. Kind of grade for me, because I like, obviously the Thunder loss is like pretty disappointing in terms of what you think their ceiling might be. But at the same time, it's like, it's, you know, outside the conference and doesn't really matter. And then the Knicks win is so good that you're like more forgiving about the Thunder thing. But then the slip up last night. Anyway, tell me your thoughts and just give me like an overall grade for this past week of Cavs ball.
Yeah, the Thunder loss was disappointing because a lot of the Cavs' worst habits from the pre sort of Harden trade and before they sort of righted the ship ahead of the All-Star break, they sort of crept back in. So that's miserable rebounding performance in the moments that it mattered. Down the stretch, they gave up a couple of huge offensive rebounds when they absolutely could not. Turnovers came back. I think that first quarter they had like 10 turnovers in the first quarter, and they got down 23 to a team, like you mentioned, that did not have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is an MVP candidate, who won MVP last season. And also, they did not have Jalen Williams, who's their second best player. Didn't have Alex Caruso. So, I will say this: the Thunder without those guys are still probably better than half of the Eastern Conference. So the Thunder have like been fine without their best players and have actually played pretty well. So it's not the type of loss where you're like, wow, I can't believe the Cavs just lost to some other team that had none of their best players. Like the Thunder are still a very good team. But it was disappointing to sort of see some of those bad habits and things that really define the first half of their season kind of come back into play, even with James Harden on the roster. So, but then that Knicks game was a complete bounce back, and it was nice to see them completely dominate the Knicks for a change, because as we know from really where this whole narrative about this Cavs team started was that playoff loss to the Knicks in 2023.
Was that was 23? I was going to say, I couldn't remember how far back that is, but you totally agree with you. Like, that is, when you think about the Cavs, even now, like number one in my mind is just what it felt like watching that series, being like, I mean, this isn't even an NBA team. Like, they just don't look like they belong.
And it was, it was the first time they'd made the playoffs since LeBron left, and they had this great season. And you're like, okay, wow, like they've really made their mark. They're establishing themselves, and then to just basically get it was a gentleman's sweep to get smoked like that was really like, whoa, like okay, that this team maybe is not what we thought it was. So that is really the origins of the angst about these Cavs. So it was really nice to see them dominate the Knicks. They played physical against the Knicks, especially defensively. They really bothered Jalen Brunson with physicality. Dennis Schroeder played his ass off guarding Jalen Brunson. So that was great to see. And then honestly, I'm going to give them maybe not a pass for last night, but they're on a back-to-back. They're on the road. They get this news that James Harden has fractured his thumb in that game against the Knicks, which is a whole other thing.
Is it true that he gave that from giving a thumbs up too vigorously?
He did, yeah. I think it was a thumbs up to the ref for not giving him any foul calls in that game. I think he was just like, "Thanks,
sort of
fellas."
Like a real sarcastic,
really sarcastic.
And the bone just snapped from the force of the sarcasm.
It was there was so much tension in those bones that it just.
God bless him.
God bless him. He's not going to need surgery, which is big. He's going to apparently try to play through it. Like he's listed as questionable. He didn't play last night, but he is questionable for their next game. I thought they played really hard, and honestly, like when you have Harden, Donovan Mitchell, and Evan Mobley all not playing, your rotations are going to get wonky. You're going to be playing guys that should not be seeing the amount of minutes that they're seeing. The Bucks don't have Giannis, but like they still have a decent team at home. And so that loss I'm kind of chalking up to injuries plus on a back-to-back plus being on the road. So overall grade, Andrew, I'm going to go with a B. I think the Thunder loss was super disappointing. Game they should have won with the amount of talent that they had on the court compared to what the Thunder were throwing out there. But I think the Knicks, like as we look at the Eastern Conference and just getting through the Eastern Conference first, which I think is most important for them, obviously, you got to get through the East before you can get to the finals. That win against the Knicks was pretty satisfying because that is a team that has haunted them, as we just talked about. And to see like not only their guys contributing that always contribute, but like the James Harden edition, and he hit some big threes down the stretch, played super well, is it's a big deal. So B from me.
Okay, a solid B. I'm not going to offer my grade or dispute it. I think that feels fair. I mean, the only thing I will observe is that like you can't totally exercise the demons of the Knicks game if you like come out and like lay an egg in a Sunday like prime time, or not prime time, but like showcase game against the defending champs. It's still not totally dodging the allegations of the lights being too bright when you get that opportunity and they're just like not really going to show up. So I think there's still some. I guess what I'll say is that until the Cavs kind of do that conclusively in the playoffs, I think that's what it'll take to kind of exercise the demons for this group and for the way that the fans feel about them. It's kind of like the Guardians and like a playoff run going past the Yankees, right? Or kind of getting to that level and being able to like vanquish those teams. The current organization doesn't seem capable of that just because of the ceiling offensively, and so you kind of just expect that they're not going to be able to do it. So I mean I think looking forward, I think that we kind of talked last week about the Cavs just being fun. And I will say, like, even as disappointing as the game on Sunday was, there were still like a lot of fun moments in that. And then again, obviously the Knicks game was incredibly fun. And like you mentioned, still some fun moments against Milwaukee. They were fighting, even if it wasn't as pleasant to watch, maybe. I think still a fun team. And so that's kind of where I'm at, of just like I am now at the point of awareness of like, they are on these nights and, shaping my schedule around being able to watch them and enjoy their brand of basketball. And I feel like that's a big step forward for them.
Yeah, it is. They have another big game on Friday playing the Pistons. So there's still a lot of fun. Like, I found last night really fun because it's fun to watch guys that are usually not starting or getting the amount of minutes. I mean, it's fun to watch Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis, the two guys they got from the Kings, playing like absolute maniacs out there on the floor. And like, what a heist it was that the Cavs got those guys basically for DeAndre Hunter, who is now out for the year for the Kings. He played one game. So like they really, especially with Keon Ellis, who I think is only 26 years old and is still finding himself as a player. Those additions, you take guys like that who are good, and you take them out of a losing, dysfunctional environment and put them on a team that's trying to win and has a pretty established culture. And I think you saw last night like what that can do to players. So I think there were a lot of positives in that game last night, despite the loss. And yeah, they're fun, but again, you're right. Like these games are big only to an extent, because the biggest games obviously are coming in the playoffs. You're a little bit concerned about the thumb with Harden. It's one that people have said like 4 to 6 weeks to fully heal. Mm-hmm. So like you hope by the time the playoffs roll around, he's okay and that like he's close to 100%. But fortunately, it's his non-shooting hand, which helps. But yeah, not really specifically the news that you want to get after a big win over the Knicks and you're 5-1 in the Harden era. So they can't fully have nice things yet. But I think they're in a really good spot. And I think, they've got some, I think they play the Pistons twice and then the Celtics coming up over the next week. So again, they're going to have some tests, and that's what you do it for, baby. You know, that's what you live for.
That's right. You live for February basketball.
You live for it. Yep.
All right. So setting Harden aside, of the other players that have kind of come in to the rotation for the Cavs this year, do you have a favorite? Is it Ellis?
Yeah, it's Ellis.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Ellis is a guy.
View, right?
Yeah, I mean Schroeder's been. I tweeted this yesterday, but like Schroeder has greatly increased the like got that dog in him in the Cavs, because that is a thing the Cavs had lacked, and he is
almost completely in previous years.
Almost had negative
like an absence
dog in them.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, there's that meme of the X-ray that people, and there's a dog in it. They just had a normal X-ray.
Yeah, just a normal chest X-ray.
Yep. Just your standard X-ray. So I think
the doctor was like, "Yeah, that looks fine. That looks good."
Yeah, he was like, "No, you're healthy."
Yeah, congrats.
I'm not hearing any barking coming out of there, so you're fine.
That's good, and that's what we're looking for, frankly.
That's what we're looking for in these results.
Yeah.
No, Ellis to me is really exciting because he's just like a prototypical 3-and-D wing. Yeah. He hasn't been like a super consistent 3-point shooter throughout his sort of brief career, but like he hit, I think, 4 or 5 threes last night. And honestly, he is the type of player, like they talk about good defensive players. And like, what does that look like? This dude just makes plays on the defensive end, whether it's like getting a hand in to swipe the ball away, whether it's just bothering somebody he's guarding with how he plays defense and how he's able to stay in front of people and just track the ball. Like there is a very obvious talent there defensively, and you can see it when he plays, of a guy that has a nose for the ball, is going to get steals, is going to put his body in front of guys and not let them get by easily. And like that is just such in a league that is full of giant wings that can dribble the ball, like that is such a huge thing. So and the fact that he's only 26, like he's young and he's still developing, I think if he is someone that can become a consistent 3-point shooter, and like his form looks great, like there's really nothing mechanically wrong there. It's just becoming more consistent. And I think you saw last night, like he hit a sidestep 3 where he took a dribble, took a step to his left and put up a 3 and made it. And you could, the bench reaction, some of the guys were like, "I'm sorry, what was that, Keon Ellis?" So no, I love Keon Ellis. I don't know what the Sacramento Kings were doing, but I appreciate their contributions to the 2026 Cavs. And I thank them for accepting DeAndre Hunter for a 26-year-old who, like, it's just, that's the type of player that you sign to an extension because you take a chance on. You're like, this guy's young and he's obviously very talented. Right. And the King said, but what if instead of that, we didn't? And
what if we tried to be actively bad for 3 or 4 years?
And I appreciate it. So thank you to the Kings.
Feeling generous. Okay. So yeah, Cavs, I think, will probably continue to be our main focus here for a little bit as the season rolls along. And like you said, they've got some big games coming up, but we did also want to talk about the Browns because
they're forcing themselves back into our lives, Andrew.
They're rude in that way. They are at the scouting combine this week. And so the rumor mill, starts up a little bit, and then also so much media availability.
Oh my God.
And so I tried to keep up with a little bit of it. I will be honest and say that I am not let me start with this, Jordan. When you are covering the team, in a professional or quasi-professional capacity, right? For a while there, I was podcasting about the Browns on a daily basis. When you're doing that, at least for me, I'll say my mindset was to try and have an original thought about the Browns to come into those conversations like ready with something that you hadn't heard other people say, and like, you thought was going to contribute something to the conversation, and maybe like a difference. And one of the things that got tough about it was that a lot of those thoughts were negative, right? Like, they got to a point where, I think we've talked about this before. There's such a divergence between what people who were following like the NFL more broadly and seeing what the Browns were doing felt about them, versus like Browns fans first, who wanted to believe that they were right around the corner from like really cracking this thing open. And then they go and put up the 2 seasons that they just put up. And it's like, okay, so yeah, no, they are as bad as we said they were. But it becomes really hard in those conversations to have, positive thoughts. And so like one of the things that I have been intentional about since not podcasting about the Browns every day, which has been like a year now where I haven't been doing that, is just like not spending as much time thinking about them, because it sucks, frankly, to think about them every day. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. So I've been taking a little vacation. And so with this, like knowing we were going to talk, I wanted to kind of be up to date on what they had said at the combine. And so I was like, let me just check and see what, media availability there was. There's been so much.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to watch them give the same answers about Shedeur Sanders in 6 different formats.
I know.
I don't have an appetite for that, frankly.
No appetite for it. I don't. Obviously, like, it's all because of where we're at in the off season. It's like it's the only thing apparently people can ask about that
right.
are like, what do you think about Shedeur Sanders? Like,
well, let me just, because when you say that, one of my takeaways. So what I did is I took a walk before we started recording, and I listened to the press availability, like the podium stuff for both of them, and then the little scrum afterwards. And like, this is never personal with any of these people. I respect anybody that gets paid to watch the Browns, because I've done it a little bit and I know how hard it is to just like keep interest. Mary Kay Cabot asked like a dozen questions between the 2 Barry availabilities and the 2 Monken availabilities. And literally, I am not exaggerating, every question was about the quarterbacks.
Yep.
I'm not exaggerating that it was a dozen times, and I'm not exaggerating that she did not ask about anything else. No coaching stuff, no offseason stuff. I mean, the most you could say is asking about the other quarterbacks that aren't Shedeur and Deshaun. That was the most. That was the furthest afield we got. But everything else was laser focused. And I get it, man. Like, I know I'm stealing the mic here a little bit, Jordan. I get like why you would be in this situation of like, okay, Shedeur is a massive draw outside of what he does on the field, right? And then Deshaun is one of the most lightning rod players of the past decade. And I know that's like kind of a charitable way to, I mean, he's a person who has done a lot of bad things and is still around the league, and at one point was good and then was in part of this gigantic trade. And so he's like, there's a lot of interest there as well. I get why every question would be about that, but also like, I mean, there's so much else to talk about with this team. Like the fact that they don't return an offensive line, it jumps to mind, right? Like what they're going to do defensively with a totally, with a different defensive coordinator, and how much they're going to keep and how much they're going to lose. Anyway, the fact that it was 100% about the quarterbacks. I mean, and to your point, like I know that that's kind of all there is to talk about, but it's so one note that it is laughable. And it's such like a codex to understanding what this offseason is going to feel like as a Browns fan, because it's one thing now when it's all very hypothetical, but they're going to get these guys in the room, and then we're going to go through this, dude, every day. Like training camp this year is going to be blood sport with all of these different quarterbacks and personalities. Like you can already see it coming. And I just cannot imagine what that's going to be like to like be too close. It's like one of those things where like the sun is out and you can feel how hot it is, even though you're not in the sun. It's just going to be like, you're not going to be able to shelter yourself from it if you're even remotely interested in this team.
Well, and it's not even just the questions that were asked by reporters at the combine. I think both Cleveland radio stations, ESPN Cleveland and 92.3 The Fan, are also nonstop talking just about do you think Shedeur Sanders could start? Do you think he's got enough under his belt now? And Todd Monken has said some things. Do you think he could start? I think 92.3 had on a guy that has like continually been banging the drum for Shedeur since like he was drafted. And so like the only reason you have that guy on is so he can spread his very strange Shedeur Sanders propaganda. I mean, it is literally every outlet in Cleveland is only able to have conversations about Shedeur. And listen, like as somebody who, even when I was running social media at Sporting News, like anytime we posted anything about Shedeur, it was guaranteed engagement. So if they're, especially at the beginning of the season and training camp, it was like, listen, like I don't think this is all that interesting, but we have seen the type of engagement anything around Shedeur gets, so let's post it. But I do think that like there is a point of diminishing returns. I think we're already there. I don't find anything about him remotely interesting anymore. Like even if you, I think.
Well, there's one thing, and we'll get to it.
And we will get to it. But like even if at the beginning, when the Browns drafted him and you thought he was charming in interviews and you were like, oh, this is kind of like, who knows if he'll start, but this is kind of a new person that we're seeing in the media, really like NFL media for the first time. There's really nothing left that is interesting. And the conversation, if you're a honest person, is one that is not interesting because we just watched him play incredibly poor football. So the conversation that apparently we can only have of, is he good enough to start next season, which until we have any evidence through OTAs and training camp of what improvements, if any, he's made, is a moot point. It's just really like, oh my goodness, is there, like you said, there are so many other things to talk about with this Browns team, but it is no one can have the conversations about that apparently.
But to your point, like it works, right? Talking about him works probably. Like just as an example, if we made a clip from this conversation,
yeah,
and put it online and said like, why is everybody obsessed with talking about Shedeur Sanders? That would also get a ton of engagement, right? Like,
yes,
even from a meta textual, like the conversation that we had during the season, basically saying like, this guy's not anything like to write home about. He'll hang around the league as a backup. He'll probably have a few flashes, but he's not ever going to be like a high-end starting quarterback. I think that feels pretty baked in to me at this point. That got the most, I think, engagement, just like in terms of replies and name calling of anything we've done since we started doing this, right? Like the Dennis Schroeder takes don't really seem to have the same durability for some reason.
Schroeder's not getting the same respect. It's outrageous.
It's and frankly, kind of it is, right? Because it's like, I pulled that name out of nowhere, but it is kind of funny because like he does the most with the opportunity that he's given, and like you're saying, like throws himself around and really gives a shit. And then on the flip side, you've got a guy who's just like seems to be as or more interested in being a personality than being like a productive NFL player. So it's kind of an apt comparison just to be like what actually goes into making things interesting in the NFL. And I think, increasingly in, I would say, our culture at large, there is this breaking point between the notoriety of someone in and of itself versus what they have actually done as a person.
It's both quarterbacks on the Browns roster outside of Dylan Gabriel, who may or may not exist. Like I'm not even sure. Like has anyone seen him this offseason?
Oh, what a poor guy.
A poor guy. But both Shedeur and Deshaun Watson are the conversations about both of them are much more on what's going on with them off the field than they are anything that has happened on the field, because the on the field product has been bad. So, and yet the ratio of like performance to how much we're talking about them is maybe some of the most insane I've ever seen. And we went back to back. We went from Deshaun, who has also a similar group of people that seem to have almost like a cult like following. I don't think it's quite to the level of Shedeur, but it's close. Mm-hmm. And now we're experiencing the same thing, and it's exhausting. And it is also just like, what is so interesting is like to find the interesting stuff at the combine. Like the most interesting thing I saw with Monken was a one-on-one interview with Ian Rappaport that he did after his media availability, where Rappaport sort of asked him, like, hey, you were just coaching Lamar Jackson. How much of the offense that you installed with Lamar are you going to bring with you to Cleveland, or are you sort of waiting to see which quarterback is going to play and you're going to mold your offense around them? And Monken's a pretty honest dude. And I think like if you ask him some legitimate questions, he's going to give you pretty good answers. And he basically said like it would be silly for me not to take the offense of how successful we were in Baltimore and bring some of that to Cleveland. He said that's why they hired me. Like there's interesting stuff out there, but you have to like find these one-off videos with guys. And I don't even think like Ian Rappaport is a lot of times just sort of a mouthpiece for the NFL, but like he was asking good questions and Monken was giving very open and honest answers. And it is remarkable when you don't just ask, what do you think? Do you think Shador is going to start?
Do you have your QB1 as of now?
Yeah.
Do you currently have QB1 in the building?
Yeah. There's a lot to ask. Like, hey, Todd, what kind of offense do you envision running in Cleveland? I don't know if anybody's asked him that question. And so it was nice to hear him say, like, yeah, I'm going to take a lot of the stuff that I did in Baltimore. We're going to bring it to Cleveland. I think he said we got to get the guys used to the terminology. The terminology is going to be different. Like it was real, like an actual answer about an actual football question. Totally. And that probably has 10 retweets compared to anything he said about Shador.
And listen, like us having this conversation is just another knock-on effect of it happening.
It is.
Like, because we shouldn't be talking about this any more than we are. But I think what's interesting, Jordan, to go back to what you were saying about your time at the Sporting News, and like this is it's the same incentives that are pushing the people in the Cleveland media to talk about it. What I think is so fascinating about it is that it doesn't seem yet anyway to have reached that diminishing return point, right?
I guess not.
And what I think it's really a useful test case for like what does, assuming they don't add like a presumptive starter, right? And that is going to be sort of an open competition. What do the next, is it 7 months until they play a football game? 6, I guess, closer to 6 now. What does that look like? And does it reach a point where people are kind of tired of it? Or because I think, Jordan, what I'm wondering and what I'm speculating is that we have really reached the point now where like talking about sports media is misleading. You're really kind of talking about two different industries. You're talking about people that want to cover the sport and like what happens on the football field and what follows from that. And then you're talking about another industry of people that just want to talk around sports, like the culture of sports. And the sports culture is what's interesting. And it's treated much more like talking about what happened on the most recent episode of like Real Housewives, for example, right? Like the interaction of the personalities and like how people feel and the emotion of it is more interesting than anything to do with like what actually occurs on the field. And it really is totally geared toward what do you think will happen in the future? And it's always forward looking. There's no analysis. There's no understanding. It's just what might happen next, because that's the titillating part, is like what could occur. And so everybody's allowed to have an opinion about what might happen. Like you have to be, to a certain extent, intelligent about football to talk about like what did Shador do that was bad and what could he improve on that could actually give him a chance to start this year and have like a nuanced conversation. But instead, I think what most people want to talk about is what should happen and what will happen, what are the possibilities. And I think that those two things separating more and more, you can kind of talk about what you think should happen or what could happen indefinitely. Like there's not a time limit or like a level of expertise tied to that. So you can just like they can, all of the Cleveland sports shows that we're talking about can talk from now until September about what could happen and overanalyze every small piece of information with its like, and what impact that might have on Shadur's future and what might happen to him. That they don't have to ever stop doing that. Like there's not an end to it.
Yeah, it's not really even football. It's just really just like, will this person play? Would you do this deal for if this team offered you this for the number 6 pick? Would you do it? Like, I understand that there is a gap of time between now and the draft, obviously, and then training camp. So I don't think all of this is unworthy of discussion. I think sometimes you can have fun discussions about hypothetical scenarios, but when it is sort of just the same thing over and over again, which it is in the case of Shedeur, and even Deshaun Watson to an extent. Yeah, it's very tiring, especially when it's like, it'd be one thing if like Stefanski was still there and the offense they're going to run and like there's nothing really new. But I mean, like Todd Monken just hired an entirely new staff. He is bringing a different offense with him that you could ask questions about his time at Georgia, how that shaped, the sort of offense he wants to run, all those things. But you're not going to get it because those questions are not going to get you the sort of engagement that apparently Shedeur still does. And that is just a reality of what sort of sports media is in 2026.
Right. And so I guess let's leave that there and kind of be the change we want to see. Me, the two takeaways from the conversations, the press conferences, all that sort of stuff. One, you already kind of mentioned it, like listening to Todd Monken talk and answer questions and frankly swear.
One thing about Todd Monken.
Please go ahead.
Well, there's two, because I have to say one more thing about Shedeur.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I sent this to you before so two things on Todd Monken. One, this is also the funniest thing because this also was a thing I saw that had 10 retweets on Twitter. I'm not kidding you. 10 retweets. It was from CBS Sports. Now, Shedeur was included in it. I couldn't let this tweet go by because it was one of the more insane things I've ever seen. Todd Monken recently had a birthday. He said he got a package in the mail. He thought it was from his wife, like a birthday present from his wife. He opens it. It's from Shedeur Sanders. I don't think in a million years you could
literally pause the podcast right now.
Pause the podcast.
Guess what you think it is. Say it out loud.
Think about anything that comes to mind. Like, what gift could Shedeur Sanders get his new head coach?
Like a young, like early 20s quarterback get his Todd Monken's like 60. Did he just turn 60?
Yeah, I think so.
60-year-old head coach. What would you put yourself in his shoes? What would you get your 60-year-old NFL head coach?
And you will not guess what it is, because the answer to that question is it was a porcelain horse head. And I had to watch this video, Andrew, multiple times just to make sure I was hearing what he said correctly. He said that Shedeur said, "I liked it. I also got one for myself, and I thought you would want this." Like,
he was like, "Do you have two?"
So he was like, "What is going on?" So anyway, that's good. That stuff, yeah, I'll eat that stuff up. That's hilarious. I don't understand.
Yeah, more of that.
Is it subliminal messaging? Is it just he was in a store and saw a porcelain horse head and said, "I'll send this to coach"? That's okay. So that's one. Anyway, find the clip. I quote tweeted it. So go find that. The other is that Todd Monken is wearing this giant, like, blue Air Jordan sweatshirt and like this Nike hat. And he basically said that he had like $500 left from the Ravens to like use on gear while he was there. And then they fired him, and he's like, and bought I don't know if he was like in Indianapolis and needed an outfit for the combine, or he just like did it before he left. But he's basically just saying like, yeah, I took the Ravens money because they fired me, but I still had this amount left and I'm not going to spend it. So he spent it on the outfit that you see him wearing at the combine. And I'll be honest with you, kind of love it. Kind of love that. So
that's professional spite. That is professional grade spite.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It is fun to have a head coach that has a personality, because we have suffered, frankly.
we did not have one.
And I think Kevin seems like a very nice person. So not saying anything about him personally, except to say that and obviously he did it intentionally, right? I'm not saying that he was boring because he's a boring person. I'm saying he was boring because he thought that served him more.
Yeah.
And I think Todd is taking the different approach, which is, I'm going to be myself, and I don't really care if the media likes me or doesn't like me. And weirdly, that's working, and it seems like so far the media really likes him. But, they do the podium press conference, which is the one that NFL Network carries, and then they do a local media scrum, which is like closer up. And in that one, which I listened to, he was just kind of letting them fly. I don't know that he was under the impression it was maybe not being recorded. I'm not sure, but he was letting them fly with aplomb. And then the poor guy that runs the Cleveland Browns daily podcast feed had to go through and knock all those out with some sort of scrubber. So, you know, he's making work, I guess is what one way to say it. It is fun, you know, that he does seem to have a personality, will give real answers. I thought gave some really thoughtful answers about being a head coach for the first time. You know, kind of talked about, I think one of the things that's interesting is every coordinator on their staff is a first-time coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it is a young coaching staff. It's a young group of guys overall, which I think again speaks to where they see themselves right now and where they see themselves going into the future years. And I think that there's weirdly a lot to be optimistic about with just that. It's very clearly a change from who Kevin Stefanski was as a head coach, and I think as a person, really. And I think there's significant downside risk, right? Because I think Todd Monken is obviously not going to mince words with these players, and when you have a young team that maybe is not going to be playing that well at times, that can get really ugly, you know.
And already caused issues in Baltimore, which is part of the reason he's not there anymore. So
exactly, yeah. So like that is the red flag on the horizon. But for now, I think it's easier to be optimistic about what that could be, and that he, you know, understands the opportunity and the challenge of like coaching a young team. And I think, you know, his answers around being more adaptable and embracing players for who they are is something that has been a criticism in my mind for a few years of the coaching staff, both Jim Schwartz on the defensive side and Stefanski on the offensive side. So I look forward to a more adaptable coaching staff, and I hope that we get to see that in action.
Yeah, and I think he has certainly, I think getting a look at that personality and getting some color from him just makes him more relatable. He had I think in that same interview with Rappaport, he asked him how the process went, like the interview process. And he was like, you know, my first interview was a Zoom interview. Then they had me in the building in person. And then they texted me and were like, can you jump on another Zoom? And I said, yeah, but I'm not wearing a suit. We've done like enough of these. And I was like, as somebody who is
that I really like,
as somebody who is currently going through job interviews, I can't not relate to something more than like, okay, I'll do another one with you guys, but I'm going shirtless. Like, I don't care anymore, you know? So like that was, he literally was like, I'm not wearing like, either you're at this point, you're hiring me or you're not.
Right.
I'm
going to be shirtless and I'm going to be eating a messy sandwich throughout the entire, you're going to have to watch me eat a burrito while you ask me about, you know,
because this is my lunchtime. So
my
that's
greatest
what I'm doing.
Successes and failures.
Yeah. So I thought that was really funny. And like, I appreciated such like a candid answer about like the interview process. It's very real. And like you said, like I was always someone who likes Stefanski, but I think the only time that he ever really showed any personality, I don't know if you remember this, he did a Pardon My Take interview like the year after they won that playoff game or the offseason.
Yeah.
The only time he's really ever shown any personality, ever like joked around or got out of that character a little bit.
And frankly, very disappointing to me that the one time he showed personality was with the Barstool guys.
It's tough that that's the only podcast that he was willing to do that with, but that's an aside. But yeah, no, I think obviously the Browns were looking for perhaps the opposite of what Stefanski was. And they certainly, I think, have found a guy that is, he is not going to hold back. But I think that's what they want. And honestly, I don't think it is the worst idea when you have the quarterback room that you do, speaking of Shedeur Sanders, to have somebody who is not going to baby him. I'm not saying that like Kevin Stefanski was doing that. But I have a feeling that he is going to have a very different experience, Shedeur, with Todd Monken as his head coach, as he did with Kevin. And frankly, for all the players, for a young team who had, you know, the Browns got a ton of praise for their young players in their draft, but then you still win 5 games. And so it's there should be nobody on that team that is feeling themselves in any way. And I think if there is a coach that is going to not allow you to feel yourself too much, and maybe I'm saying that weirdly by the look at Andrew's face.
No. But, I'm just thinking about Myles Garrett and how he set the sack record and then got engaged to Chloe Kim. That feels like
he's allowed. He's the only one who's allowed.
I mean, that kind of feels like a lifetime achievement award territory.
He's good.
Like it seems like he's doing okay.
Yeah, he's good. Outside of that, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, and of course I agree with you, and
Yeah,
I think that is, you're totally right about it's such an NFL cliche. You hire the opposite of the guy you just fired. Like
it is.
that's what they do. Last thing I want to say about is just more on the front office side. Andrew Berry's press conference, I did also feel like he was lighter and more
Mm-hmm.
jocular and like laughing more
Do
than
you see
he
his
has.
joke about the offense? Like,
I
well,
did.
if I could have, and like is naming guys, and you were
Yeah.
like, whoa, okay,
We didn't do that for 6 years. Like we didn't say
yeah, like
anybody, we
whoa.
didn't name a player for 6 years, and now all of a sudden we're just cracking jokes.
He would say respectfully,
Right.
I don't want to talk about
Right.
things that
I'm not even sure
players
that I'm
not on my team. Yeah,
willing to confirm that the offensive line is a position at this point.
yeah,
No, I mean, from the jump, from the beginning of that press conference, I was like, okay, so he also is feeling a little bit different, which I think is an interesting data point, just in terms of like uh, who influences who and what the feeling of the building is a little bit, you know. And I think he's referred to the head coach position being the CEO position a few
yeah,
times, and I think from like a Machiavellian standpoint, there's no question that Barry has more power in the organization at the moment, but I do think that like Todd Monken is shaping things a little bit differently, and you can feel that across the league or across the team. The one thing I really wanted to shout out was Andrew Berry got asked a question about Rondale Moore,
mm,
and his tragic passing recently, and gave a really, really thoughtful answer about. I mean, and like it just listening to him say that and say those things, it reminded me. I think I felt this about Kevin. I certainly feel this about Andrew. Like these are really good people, and I have criticisms of the way that they have done their job or whatever, and where the team is at. But like Andrew Berry is a good person, and he gave a very thoughtful answer about how hard it is to rehab from an injury, a serious injury, and be around away from a team that you're used to being around all the time, and how much of a mental health struggle that can be for players,
yeah,
especially young players that maybe haven't faced adversity. And I think to kind of without prep, give an off the cuff answer that is that empathetic and thoughtful. And part of his answer was the NFL needs to do better, needs to do more for those players. Like that is the sort of thing that you wish for in anybody that represents your franchise. I mean, I think one of the things that's hardest about being a Browns fan is knowing that the owner is not a good person, to
yeah,
be frank. And I think Andrew Berry is a good person. And so really like it's just felt good to hear, even in a real, it's a difficult conversation, but he's not like shying away from it or giving a pat answer, gave a very thoughtful answer that really dug into like the background of why those sorts of things happen, and that there are things that could be done to help maybe avoid them, and I think that goes well beyond like the sport on the field and all that sort of stuff. But I did just really want to shout that out because it's like I think that there's a lot of guys that in the league that maybe don't have as thoughtful or caring an approach to questions like that.
yeah. I mean, I think it's why, and this is a convo for another day too. But I think it's why when they made the Deshaun Watson move, it sort of
Yeah,
was so jarring because
totally agree.
I had thought of both Kevin and Andrew, and I think I still do in a lot of ways, even though, like we've talked about on previous pods, Andrew Berry's sort of penchant for taking chances on guys that probably don't deserve those chances to be taken on. But I think that's why the Deshaun Watson thing was so jarring, because I looked at Barry and Kevin as guys with who are good people who maybe had some who maybe I had an idea of sort of higher morals than maybe some other football teams, and I don't know if I think that they don't have, like, I don't think that move made me be like, oh well, these are two horrible human beings in any way, but I was a little like, damn, it really is the NFL.
Yeah,
Guys will really do anything to win, even if you think these people are good people at heart, which again, I think they are. But that's a longer conversation for another day. But I agree with you that like he's a smart guy. He's very articulate. He is very like you said, empathetic, and can talk about anything from football to life to whatever. I even thought it was interesting that like he gave a pretty honest answer about what Shador needs to get better at. The first
yeah.
thing he said about Shador was he needs to stop putting the ball in harm's way so much.
Hmm.
So like,
Hmm.
I mean, that's a pretty blunt
Yeah.
Pretty blunt, accurate assessment. And you don't always, a lot of times all you get from Andrew Berry is, we think he's improving. We want to, which he said about Deshaun a lot when he's been rehabbing, like, we want to get him to a place where we feel good about his injury and all that stuff. And so I thought he was pretty open about a lot of stuff, which again, it doesn't really mean much in the long run, but you would just rather have that type of, at least showing some personality and some distinct characteristics that remind you that they're like actual people and human beings rather than just like what you usually get from these guys. So, but yeah, I think what you said about his response to the Rondale Moore question was really well said.
Do you know what Andrew Berry said about Dillon Gabriel?
I think he said we've been looking for him, but that sometimes his height makes it a challenge. We can lose him in various places in the locker room. I thought that was too honest, frankly.
Yeah, he said, I think he said something that we have to have had him turn Find My Phone on for everybody so we can just kind of like track him down in the locker room.
If he's in the equipment room, you are not going to find him.
Yeah. Like a mouse in corn.
I did not hear.
Well, I was going to make it. I mean, your joke superseded my joke. My joke was going to be he didn't say anything about him because he didn't get asked about him. But no, he did, and he gave the most that guy's not going to be on the team next year answer ever. I think at one point he literally said, "We love all our players," in response to a question about Dillon Gabriel. So, best of luck, Dillon, wherever you end up next year. That 7th round swap pick is going to hit real hard.
Oh man, that notification is gonna to the veins.
One last thing on the quarterback thing. I just like we have done a few versions of the Deshaun Watson death march, and I don't think we're done, but I do think that the like conversation around the Malik Willis stuff is more interesting and more in depth than I anticipated it being. I did not think, but it has been reported a few times as fairly sourced that the Browns are certainly involved in those conversations. And I think the operative question with that, Jordan, is just if they are willing to go to where they need to go to get that done, because it's going to be more than you think. And one of the things that an analytics driven front office is going to do is know what a player is worth. And do you justify going above that for a player who is as unproven as Malik Willis is? I have my suspicion is that they are going to be outbid by someone, but it does seem like they're actually involved. And I think it was Zach Jackson was on the Ultimate Cleveland, whatever the hell, and and he said, it's not going to just be Deshaun and Shedeur next year. That would be crazy. And so he said they're definitely going to be in on Malik Willis. I think that's probably true. The next thing he said was, or they maybe trade for like Anthony Richardson. And when I was painting a bleak picture of what the Browns quarterback competition would be between Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson, I neglected to investigate how much bleaker it would get if you threw Anthony Richardson into the mix. So it's exciting to see that we're continuing to plumb the depths in terms of like what might occur for this team this summer.
A quarterback room of Anthony Richardson, Shedeur Sanders, and Deshaun Watson might break me. But I'll have you know, Andrew, that a report came out today that Anthony Richardson has regained full vision in his right eye. So
I bet that's going to help.
Who are we to say that there's not an MVP caliber quarterback in there?
I genuinely think that will help him play football. That's my analysis.
I don't think that's too hot of a take to say. That is the type of player that the Browns should avoid, because there's no reason to add in maybe if we, when you already have first of all, 2 of those, probably 1 for sure. 1 might just be bad.
Yeah, no, I think 2 is maybe generous. 1.5.
No, I think I agree with you. I think the Malik Willis, they will probably get outbid for it, but I would be surprised, like, especially when you go into an offseason and you've just hired a head coach and an offensive head coach. I cannot imagine those conversations. If I'm Todd Monken, I'm saying, before I take this job, do you have a sort of blueprint for the quarterback room? Because I cannot imagine Todd Monken would be super pumped to be like, Shedeur and Deshaun, baby, let's see which one of them wins out. And
I do think he's probably cocky enough to think he can make it work in a way that Kevin couldn't.
True. That's also true. And he has said some, as we have mentioned, he said some glowing things about, frankly, both quarterbacks. Although He then finished some of that with, yeah, of course we're going to have an open competition. Why wouldn't we? So,
Right.
so no, it'll be interesting. I think, we'll see what happens with Malik and whether they are like, we're going to go for it. I'm not sure it makes sense to do that if that price does get to a certain point for where the Browns are at this season and what they're going to be. But I just, you can't. You and I have said this. You cannot go into the season with your quarterback room being Shedeur and Deshaun Watson and Dylan Gabriel. So
I will say that if they sign Malik Willis and get the offensive line rebuild right, those are two very big ifs, right? Those are gigantic, like load-bearing marble columns of an if. But if they did those two things, and add a wide receiver as maybe your third marble column, that plus I genuinely think that you could make an argument for the defense taking a step forward. Because I like the defensive coordinator, which I don't think we've even talked about, and
might make adjustments in game. Who knows?
Right? It would be interesting to see that tried. That is the recipe for me, like getting to buy into this team by like mid-August. That's the blueprint, and I'm not saying that's their goal. And I agree with you that it maybe even shouldn't be their goal is to like try and win 8 games, but. There's a path there to like sneaking into the playoffs and being, as we talked about with the Cavs, fun to watch. And so I'm on board with that more than anything else.
Yeah, and I want to say, like, when you get average quarterback play, your team, like we have seen this so many times, like when Joe Flacco came in and just gave them average to some games above average quarterback play, you see what happens. So it's like, it is not it doesn't mean you're going to make the playoffs or you're going to make a Super Bowl run. What it does mean is an average quarterback is and a functional offense, when you have a good defense, is going to get you into the mix. And so I don't think you're far off with that at all, but they do not right now have an average quarterback. They have a lot of below average quarterbacks. And if that is what the room looks like going into the season, it's hard to be like, okay, I'm feeling optimistic about this season and maybe they'll surprise some people type of thing.
Yeah. And I to your point, I will just say that I think we have gone, like in sports in general, we've gone too far with the you got to be bad to be good thing. Like that is not a proven axiom. There are plenty of teams that have been bad and then just kept being bad.
Oh yeah.
Like there's no magic sauce in being bad for a while and then being good. And I just think like people need to internalize that is not any more proven than trying to be good as soon as possible, which would be this year. So like I'm always in favor of the team that I like rooting for being watchable as soon as possible. And I would like to like be at a point with you where like the week of the first Browns game, we're excited to watch the Browns on Sunday. That's what I want more than anything.
Make the podcast a hell of a lot more fun. So
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, to go back to what I said earlier about covering the team on a daily basis, like it would be more fun if you felt like going into the season, like, okay, a few things have to break right, but they're going to like be competitive.
Yeah.
That's what I want. More than I want some grand vision for like what the team could look like in 2030. Worry about that later, man. Just like play competitive football, play fun football now. So same thing with the Cavs, same thing with the Guardians. And that's, I mean, I guess we missed the Reese Hoskins news, but that's like the same kind of thing, right? Where it's like, well, he might hit some home runs. I like home runs. Those are fun to watch.
We added a right-handed bat, which we don't have any of. So
could come in handy.
Good. That's good. It's good to do things that make sense for your baseball team, even if you have to wait until spring training for it to actually happen. So good for them.
We're good at sports analysis. All right.
We are, baby.
On the way out the door, Jordan, anything you want to recommend to the good people out
there? Let me see. Yeah, we'll this is it's a recommendation, but also just a small commentary. Again, this is going to be in the TV realm.
Sure.
The reality show Love is Blind is a favorite of mine. The bare bones description is that guys and gals talk to each other through a wall, and you're supposed to pick one, based on no physical appearance at all. It's just the emotional side, the connection.
It's very enlightened. It's a very enlightened show.
Yeah, very enlightened. This season, though, the one that's on right now is Ohio. So it's people from Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati. And I will say that there are two of the worst men that I think I have ever come across in this show. which
and
is
you
a
work with
great.
both of them in sports radio, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's actually just media members in Cleveland. No, it is. It's highly entertaining. There are some Cleveland references. They're in Columbus for most of the show. That type of thing. But it is very. It's not a great representation of men from Ohio, but it is very funny to watch. So if you may know somebody on the show, who knows? But there's Ohio/Cleveland connections in this season, and two of the worst human beings maybe you'll ever see, which is entertaining in some ways because you don't have to interact with them. So that's my recommendation.
My recommendation is going to be TV this time as well. It's a British television show called Taskmaster. It has taken the world by storm and become very popular because now Americans occasionally go on it. They're about to do another season. Kumail Nanjiani is going to be on there. But the entire back catalog is available on YouTube for free. That's the pitch.
That's huge.
That you can just go stream it to your heart's content. And I've watched it previously, but I'm back in another mode here where I'm watching it a lot and really just having a hoot, And I actually think, Jordan, that this is kind of my pitch for solving tanking in the NBA is that you can elect to opt out of the rest of your games. Okay. So you don't even have to play basketball.
Yeah.
But you opt into some other type of competition that will happen like at the end of the season and will involve like some sort of challenge that isn't basketball related.
Okay.
And whatever team opts into that and then wins the first overall pick.
It's something I would watch for sure.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like watching, I'm trying to think of a recent Taskmaster task that I could, like watching the members of the Sacramento Kings, right? Like try and score soccer goals while riding around on scooters, right? Like that would be, you would watch. That's like must see television compared to a current Sacramento Kings game, which is not.
No. I would love to watch that. Who on the Brooklyn Nets can hold their breath underwater for the longest?
Right. Yeah. Precisely. Yeah.
I love that. I think we solved tanking.
They send their representative to the overall tournament, and then they all hold their breath, and whoever holds their breath the longest is the first overall pick.
Okay. No, I'm fully in on that, and tanking's been solved. And Adam Silver, you're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take a little commission, but that's mostly we're just doing it for the love of the game. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. That's another episode. I would say another, flawless episode of podcasting. And Jordan, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, man.
This has been great. We accomplished a lot. As I said, we just solved tanking. We did some other stuff. So, I very much enjoying this. Continue to like, subscribe, find us in your RSS feed, find us in some of the clips we're going to put out on Twitter and Blue Sky. We're honestly, Andrew, we're omnipresent and you can't avoid us. And it's how we want it.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're sort of the leading brand in media at this point, and it happens so quickly that I almost take it for granted that everybody out there in the world is listening to this, but it is an honor. And genuinely, I do want to say we have good ratings on Spotify. We just, got on like RSS feeds and Spotify and Apple Music and stuff. So it's nice to see that people like the show. Wherever you listen to us, if you could leave a little rating or review, that would really help us reach more people, which would be awesome. I think I mentioned this a few episodes ago. We are trying to like grow this into a regular show, and it is not a fun word to invoke, but monetization is really kind of the only way to like do this stuff regularly, because at a certain point, a labor of love becomes too much. So the challenge is to kind of grow it. Not a lot. I don't genuinely want to be any sort of mogul. I just want to talk to my buddy once a week about the sports things that we both care about. So it's a small ask, and we just, again, appreciate everybody's support so far, and we'll be back next week with another Cleveland Sports Podcast. Bye, everybody.